Good morning, students. So this is the last topic in this chapter. So now I'm going to tell about the reactivity series of metals. So we know that the metals are different in their properties, or each metal have specific reactivity, or we can say that some metals are less reactive while some of the metals are highly reactive, or some metals even do not react. So what is reactivity series? So the arrangement of metal on the basis of their order of their reactivity. So the metal is arranged in such a way that its order of decreasing reactivity, that means increasing or decreasing order of their reactivity, the metals are arranged. So in the page number 72, the image is given. So potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium. So potassium is having highest reactivity than sodium, or gold is having the least one and potassium is the highest one. So greater than gold it is silver, copper, lead, iron, zinc, aluminium, magnesium. Okay, so here it's an arranged reactivity series of metals. Means metals are arranged on the basis of their reactivity. So from this what we can understand, potassium is the most reactive metal, so it is placed top, and while the gold is the least reactive metal, so it is placed down. Okay, so now we are going to study about the displacement reaction. So displacement reaction means a more reactive metal displaces the less reactive metal from its salt solution. That means here one salt plus one metal is reacted. So if that metal is greater than that means the metal is having more reactivity than that metal which is having in the salt, then it will be displacing. That means here one example is there, copper sulfate and iron. So copper and iron are the two metals. Look, where is the copper? Copper is here. Iron is, where is iron? Iron is just above that of copper. So which is having higher reactivity? Iron. That means copper is less reactive than iron. So iron is having higher reactivity. So in this reaction what happens is higher reactivity is having for iron. So iron will be displacing this copper and iron sulfate, and copper will be formed. That means copper sulfate when reacted with iron forms iron sulfate. Why? Because this iron is more reactive than copper. Okay, now just imagine iron sulfate plus copper. Iron sulfate plus copper. That means iron sulfate plus copper is reacted. Then what happens? Which is more reactive? Iron is more reactive than copper. Already iron sulfate is formed, so reaction will not take place. Understood? So higher reactivity metal only will be displacing less reactive metal. Look here. So that reaction is called a displacement reaction. Here iron sulfate and copper, no reaction is there, no displacement reaction. So similarly copper sulfate. Copper sulfate can be displaced by lead, iron, zinc, aluminium, magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium. Any metal, that means if metal which is below, this metal can be replaced by any of the above metals. Because why? Because these are all having more reactivity than the downside. Okay. So this is about displacement reaction. The higher reactivity metal will be displacing lower reactivity metal. The next one is reaction of zinc metal with copper sulfate. So zinc, where is zinc? Zinc, copper sulfate, copper. So zinc can be displacing this copper. So what is formed? Zinc sulfate plus copper is formed. So we know that zinc metal is more reactive than copper metal. So in this reaction, more reactive zinc is displacing less reactive metal. So it is telling about that displacement reaction means higher reactive metal will be displacing least reactive metal. So similarly, zinc sulfate plus copper, no displacement reaction is taking place. So it is telling about this displacement reaction. Then reaction of zinc metal with iron sulfate. So iron sulfate plus zinc. So iron sulfate plus zinc. Where is iron? Iron, zinc. So zinc is more reactive. So iron sulfate plus zinc means zinc can displace this iron and zinc sulfate is formed. Okay. So zinc sulfate plus iron means no displacement reaction. Why? Because zinc is more reactive than iron. Then a more reactive non-metal displaces a less reactive non-metal from its salt solution. Okay, next one is comparison between the chemical properties of metal and non-metals. So here is one table given which is telling about the metals and non-metals. So metals are basic in oxides, basic oxides. Non-metals are acidic oxide. Then metals react with water or steam and they will be producing hydrogen gas. Metals react with dilute acid to produce hydrogen gas, but non-metals will not be reacting with water and also with dilute acids. Okay, then this one we already studied in the first video of this class. Then here some sample questions are given. Then next topic is about uses of metals. Just go through these sample questions, and if you have any doubts or if you are not understanding, just ask me. Then uses of metals, and we know that not only metals, non-metals also we have so many uses, but we are depending more metals, means we depend more in metals. So some of the important uses of metals are given. Copper metal is used for making electric wires, then for doing electric motors wiring, then household wiring, etc. Then aluminium foils are used in packaging medicines, chocolate, food items, etc. Aluminium metal also is in the form of alloys, is also used for making aeroplanes. That means alloy means it's a mixture of more than one type of metal. So aluminium is also used for this making aeroplanes. And metals in the form of steel is used to make nails, screws, nut, bolt, etc. So there are many uses of metals. So just go through these important uses. Then zinc metal is used for galvanization. We know galvanization is a process of coating metals with zinc to protect, means avoid corrosion. So silver and gold are used to make jewelry. Mercury metal is used to make thermometers. Then in our body, iron is present in a pigment of RBC called hemoglobin, which will be transporting oxygen from the lungs to all tissues. So even in our body there is a use of metal. So use of non-metals are given: oxygen, nitrogen, chlorine, iodine, sulfur, carbon. These are the non-metals. So we can just go through the oxygen means use of these gases or non-metals. So oxygen is a non-metal, so it is used means animals and plants used to breathe oxygen. The nitrogen is another which is also used by plants and also used to produce these fertilizers and all. Then chlorine is a disinfectant gas, means it will be helping to kill germs and all. Then it is used for water purification. Iodine is a non-metal which will be used to produce purple color solution called tincture iodine, which will be used in these wounds and all. Then sulfur and phosphorus are non-metals which are used in fireworks. Then also sulfur is also used for vulcanization of rubber. Carbon, it's a non-metal which is used as fuel. Okay, so these are the main important uses of these non-metals. Okay, so just go to this chapter. Our chapter is over. Thank you.